the best DAOs are the ones that are community first, are supporting the individuals within the community, supporting their individual sovereignty, individual autonomy, at the same time as they're bringing, as the DAO is a collective running after this shared purpose.
Hi everyone, welcome to yet another episode of NEWFORUM. We're always excited to bring you brilliant and inspiring guests on our podcast. We're powered by NewCoin Foundation, focused on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors to spark conversations on the topics of crypto, the metaverse, NFT, and everything Web3.
And in today's episode of NEWFORUM, we are quite elated to have with us Spencer Graham, a core contributor at the DAO House. And we're super excited to talk with Spencer about DAOs, the usability and composability of decentralization, and also what DAO House is about. Hey, Spencer, we're super happy to have you on today.
Hey, well, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited for this conversation.
Amazing. So why don't we start off, Spencer, with you telling us what made you decide to focus on DAOs, and also could you maybe explain DAO House to us?
Yeah, sure. I guess I can start with the first one. I first got into DAOs, I think it was almost exactly 2 years ago. It was, I think, in June of 2020. I had just started in the previous few months to really participate in the Web3 and Ethereum ecosystems after several years of kind of consuming information on the side. And I was working on a couple projects, and I stumbled across a DAO called Raid Guild. And it is sort of a collective of Web3 freelancers formed as a DAO, but really operating as almost as a cooperative. And Raid Guild would, and still does, bring in clients who want to hire the guild to build Web3 websites, smart contracts, get some advice on their tokenomics, all things Web3. And so I decided to join Raid Guild, and I went through that process. And I didn't have the language to really understand what I was experiencing then, but I do now. So kind of retrospectively, what I was feeling was this incredible combination of freedom and autonomy inside of the DAO, combined with the ability to create strong connections and alignment with a number of other people that I had never met before. So is that combination of ability to take risks with those people and build things together and create stuff that helped me create really strong connections and relationships with like I said, people that I'd never met before. And it was this really magical experience. And after a few months of participating in Raid Guild and working on client projects with a few other people, I got an opportunity to start contributing to DAO House, which was originally founded or started by the same people that were early members of Raid Guild. And one of them asked me to help start contributing over there. And I said yes. And I don't think I realized it at the time, but again, I have the language now, which was that I was sort of recognizing that DAO House was a really great way, a really high leverage way for me to help other people get the same feeling and experience that I had been getting from Raid Guild of connection, but also an alignment with others and feeling together with others, but maintaining some autonomy and ability for me to decide what I focus on and what I work on and who I work with. And so DAO House was and still is, I think, the best way for me to help build things that allow other people to have those experiences. And I think there's a ton of great things that can come out of that. Happy to talk more about DAO House itself, but that's kind of been my journey into the DAO space. For people who don't know, for any listeners who are not aware, DAO House, there's many ways to describe what DAO House is, but one way to describe what DAO House is as a home for what we call purpose-driven community DAOs. So purpose-driven means focused or prioritizing or focused on a shared purpose. That could be building a product. That could be serving clients in different ways like Raid Guild does. That could be just kind of living shared values and kind of being like a social club It could be many things, but the idea is that the DAO the community has a purpose that they're trying to achieve together. And that purpose might be multivariate. There might be many different reflections of that bring all these people together. But really, they share in this broader thing. That's not just number go up or token price go up. And then community DAO is a reflection of our belief that the best DAOs are the ones that are community first, are supporting the individuals within the community, supporting their individual sovereignty, individual autonomy, at the same time as they're as the DAO is a collective running after this shared purpose. Another way to think about what DAO House is a no-code application or no-code platform to launch, or what we call summon, a new DAO of a particular type, and then use that DAO over the course of the life of that DAO. So creating proposals, voting on proposals, managing treasury, paying contributors compensation, potentially making investments from the treasury, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably a lot more I can say, but I'll pause there.
DAO House sounds really like, like you said, it's almost like a studio or like an ecosystem where people come together. And it seems like you are like the central place where you can find out about DAOs, or you can propose your own DAO. At least that's from my understanding, what I understood now. So that's great, because I feel like there's so many people who have these ideas for DAOs, but they need a community. They need somebody to guide them, how to set things up, how to really regulate things like legal things, or anything kind of. How do we start a DAO? So I think it's great that you have this place where they can come together.
Yeah, DAOs are hard. They're not easy. They're amazing and they're incredible and they're powerful, but they're not easy. The DAO House like software that we have built, our platform, our application, our infrastructure, tries to make that as easy and as simple as possible. But there's always going to be nuances and decisions to make and things to figure out. And so DAO House, the community, DAO House, the ecosystem, is also here to help people who want to form a DAO or who want to join a DAO figure out how to do that. So we offer a number of different services and just guidance to people that are, even if they're not going to end up using our software, our platform, we still get a lot out of helping them figure out what they really want to do for themselves and how to create their DAO and start it up.
So you're speaking about like challenges, and I think that like imagine having like a lot of community members, and there's the core team, and I think about like decision making is like one of the biggest curiosity of mine within the DAO, and then that gets me thinking about governance tokens, so like could you define what a governance token is like to our like community, and how does token ownership shape a DAO's direction?
I think one way to think about it is one way of defining membership and governance power in a DAO. There are certain types of DAOs that use a governance token to define membership and as a measure of or reflection of governance power in that DAO. There's a lot of really powerful things about tokens as in that form. They can be used to drive or create a lot of really interesting incentive mechanisms that help individuals who are in the DAO or interested in the DAO coordinate around lots of interesting things. They can be used for curation of different items. They can be used for voting and expressing governance power and making decisions or taking actions collectively. That said, they're one way of defining membership and governance power within a DAO. There are multiple ways. The way actually that DAO House DAOs are constructed is, you could think of it like a token, but it's more like shares or stake. So in a DAO House DAO, there is not at least by default, there is no governance token. A DAO House DAO membership is defined by having a share or I guess a stake in the DAO. You can have multiple shares. So a DAO House DAO is almost like a multi-sig with lots of other powerful features. So a multi-sig has a handful of signers, and each of those signers only have one vote, basically. And there's to do anything, some number of those signers have to say yes. Usually it's like 3 of 5 or 5 of 7, or maybe as high as 9 of 16 or something like that. And those signatures are non-transferable, right? So if I'm a signer, I can't transfer my power to somebody else. So there's some degree of permissioning in who gets to be a signer in the multisig, similar to a DAOhaus DAO. If you want to join a DAOhaus DAO, you actually have to create a proposal to join, and that proposal, if passed by the DAO, would give you new shares in the DAO, and that would represent your membership as well as your governance power within that DAO. But you can have more than one share. You can have multiple shares, which means that people can have different numbers of shares. So there's a variable governance power, which creates a lot of flexibility for how new members get onboarded. They don't immediately go to the top of the list and have just as much governance power as people who have been there for a very long time. So it creates a lot of flexibility in how you can manage your community and how the community can manage itself. And there's fluidity between different levels of membership and different amounts of power.
So I have a question for that. If I want to join DAOhaus or I want to join a DAO from DAOhaus, that I cannot just buy myself into the DAOs. I have to send a proposal, and then also I cannot share these governance token. For example, I cannot give my power to Salimi, or can I transfer kind of like my voting power?
If you go to DAOhaus.club today and go to the app, you'll see what is the DAOhaus V2, and that allows you to assign a delegate that can vote on your behalf. That's a relatively basic delegation mechanism. In DAOhaus V3, with some new DAO smart contract upgrades, you're going to be able to, just like you can delegate your voting power in some of the larger token DAOs like ENS or Gitcoin, you'll be able to delegate, or Compound, you'll be able to delegate much more flexibly. You can delegate all of your voting power to somebody else, and that somebody else could be a delegate for many people. So in DAOhaus V3, yes, there will be full kind of vote delegation support as well.
How are decisions made? Because you said that DAOhaus, you don't really go with the whole governance tokens model. And so I'm just curious to know, so if I want to be a member, who kind of like makes that final decision? Is it the entire community, or is it a core team?
It is everybody who has shares in that DAO. So one of the really big advantages of a DAOhaus DAO over a governance token plus multisig model is that there is not a distinction in kind. There's not a categorical difference between the people who are on the multisig and really have all the executive power, and everybody else who just has the token as the ability to kind of signal what they want. In a DAOhaus DAO, everybody who is in the community has at least a little bit of that executive power or share of that. So it's really the community as a whole that is making those decisions and taking those actions together, rather than sort of a signal coming from the broader community that we then hope gets executed appropriately by a small core team.
Interesting. So what are some of the challenges that you see when it comes to governance? Like, I can imagine, when there's a lot of people and a lot of people want to vote and have all these ideas, like in the DAOs, it sounds really like to coordinate, sounds really a lot. So I want to know from your side, what are some of the issues that came up again and again, and you're like, oh, okay, we have to pay attention to that?
Yeah, so I think there's a fundamental trade-off between sort of the size of a DAO, like the number of people that are in the DAO, which has a relationship with how easy it is to join the DAO. There's a trade-off between that size and kind of we could say the signal to noise ratio within that DAO. It's very difficult and I don't think I have any specific numbers, but once you reach a certain size, it's very difficult for all of those people in that DAO to be kind of moving together, especially because in a DAO, you don't have somebody at the top telling everybody what to do and where to go. So I think it's really important that beyond a certain size, a DAO kind of needs more. If you're relatively small, you don't need a lot of explicit structure, because you can rely on the individual relationships that people have with each other, and the number of those relationships is still relatively small, so you can all just kind of work it out socially. But as you grow, as more people join the DAO, what I have found is it's really hard to maintain the quality of the relationships and the quality of the interactions and the quality of the coordination without more explicit structure, without some degree of like built-in mechanisms that facilitate better coordination at a larger scale. And sometimes that looks like splintering the DAO up into smaller DAOs and creating smaller spaces where people can have that higher kind of quality interpersonal social coordination that then bubbles up kind of from lots of small things into a larger thing, or more explicit like mechanisms for how to signal what is valuable or what is interesting or what you're focusing on, so that somebody else that doesn't necessarily talk to you all the time can still see what you're doing and learn from that and react accordingly and decide what they want to do in conjunction with that.
The DAO sounds pretty awesome. I think it's, I don't know, it's one of the amazing, I guess, tools that have emerged in Web3. And I'm just sometimes wondering, like, should everything be a DAO? Should every organization be a DAO? Like, what do you think about that?
I would like every organization to be a DAO. I think that would create a significant improvement in overall welfare of humanity. I don't know if it's appropriate for every, like on a local level, for every single organization to be a DAO. I guess one way to think about it is that a DAO concept can kind of, you can create any sort of existing organizational structure inside of a DAO concept. The most important thing that, at least to me, that makes a DAO or I guess it's really two things. One is that everybody who is in the organization or in the community has a share of the executive power, or at least has the ability to delegate some of that power to an individual or a small group and revoke it. So that's thing number one. And then thing number two is that all of kind of the crucial operational information is transparent or visible and accessible to everybody that is in the community and potentially other people outside the community as well. And those two things are basically impossible without blockchains and smart contracts. So I think those are like really the big innovations. And then you can, like within that, you can, at least in theory, you can create any kind of structure that you'd like. You could even create a sort of very bureaucratic hierarchy inside of that. That may not work so well in a lot of cases, but that might be one way where like everything does become a DAO in some sense. I think the area where DAOs or things that look like what we sort of feel are DAOs today, where those don't make as much sense as other places, is when there's like really high value decisions or high value actions that need to be taken quickly. It's very difficult to come to consensus fast, or it's very difficult for a distributed set of people to decide or what to do or what action to take quickly. That's a fundamental challenge. But it's also the case that it's very difficult to credibly delegate power over like a large amount of resources to an individual or to a small subset and really maintain the ability to hold them accountable. Right? If your DAO is worth $10 million and the DAO might need to take an action that is worth like $9 million, it's very difficult for the DAO to punish somebody if they run away with $9 million. It's very difficult for an individual to like stake more collateral than $9 million, right? So these high value, quick decisions or actions are difficult to put into a DAO construct, and you kind of just are forced to deal with some degree of trust, which is a little bit anathema to DAOs. But I think in reality, we're just gonna have to like the legal system can't help there, right? Like you can make it illegal for somebody to run away with a bunch of money, like it already is, and that can, even if you're relying on the legal system in that place or in that case, it's still, I think, that might be the only way to really make it work.
This sounds like a headache for any lawyer, like thinking about all the things like with tokens and DAOs, what they have to do now and rethink these structures. I think it's pretty interesting to watch, and I can't wait to see like what they're going to come up with, but it's worth exploring how far we can take the DAO structure.
Totally. I think we don't have the mechanisms in place yet, I don't think, to handle the types of scale that I think might be possible with DAOs in the future.
I'm pretty like positive that DAOs are going to evolve into something really amazing. And I think one of the amazing things about DAOs is the community aspect of it. Like people all over the world could be a part of it, as long as you have access to the internet, you have a mobile phone or a laptop computer or whatnot, you could be a part. And I think sharing cultures, different opinions, and having feedback immediately, I think it's really awesome. And I want to say thank you so much, Spencer. Really, I think this was really great. Great conversation about DAOs, also hearing about DAO House. And I'm not sure if you have any last thoughts. It would be great to hear if you have any thoughts for our community who are interested in DAOs. And also maybe you could share your where we can find you on your social platform.
Thank you for having me on. I always love talking about DAOs, and this was especially fun. talking with you guys about DAOs and DAOhaus. I think there's lots of resources out there for people who are interested in starting DAOs or joining a DAO. One of them is the DAOhaus community itself. So I think that the best place to start there is DAOhaus.club, which is our main website. There's links to lots of resources from there, lots of documentation about what our platform is and how it works and how you can get started. A link to the application, the platform itself. And then probably most importantly, actually, is the link to our Discord server where our community lives. And that's a great place to get advice from others, to get in touch with some of the core contributors from DAOhaus, like myself, who can help think through some of the challenges, some of the things that you want to figure out as you're starting a DAO or potentially joining a DAO. And I think but then beyond that, the best way is just to get started and try it. There are some relatively easy ways to create a test DAO on either a test net or just kind of without a lot of money involved, and just kind of play around and see what you see and see what makes sense and see what's confusing, and then go from there.
Amazing. We're going to put all of the resources in the bio, and make sure to join the Discord and check out DAOhaus. And thank you so much, Spencer, for being part of today's forum. And if you guys also want to get more involved within our community, make sure to follow us on IG and Twitter. We are NEWFORUM_NCO and also NewCoin. And yeah, we can't wait for the next episode. And this one about DAOs, I think is going to be super insightful for our audience. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. See you in the next episode.